Good morning, everyone. For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We start off today with the ongoing U.S.-led military campaign against the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq. Airstrikes continued into Thursday, with UK forces also participating. France announced Wednesday that it will increase its support for the U.S. campaign in Iraq by sending more fighter jets. In what could be a further escalation, the Turkish parliament will decide on Thursday if it will send ground troops into Syria. The announcement comes as the Islamic State has made advances near the Turkish border. Some believe Turkey's involvement could also be a veiled attempt to oust Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, who the Turkish government says should be removed. And we go to Venezuela, where the country is mourning the death of a senator apparently murdered Wednesday night. Robert Serra was found dead along with his partner in their house in Caracas. Authorities are investigating the crime as a homicide and have called on Venezuelans to remain calm. Crowds gathered to mourn the death of Serra. At just 27 years old, he was the youngest deputy in Venezuela's history. From the governing United Socialist Party of Venezuela, Serra was a close ally of President Nicolás Maduro. A new group of victims has arrived in Havana, Cuba to join the Colombian peace talks. The victims will participate in the dialogues between the government and the FARC guerrilla group, which renew Thursday. The talks aim to end the country's 50-year civil war that has cost tens of thousands of lives. The delegation of victims was chosen by the United Nations and the National University of Colombia and includes former hostages. The group consists of 4 women and eight women. And in Brazil, the very latest polls show Dilma Rousseff is leading in all of the country's regions ahead of Sunday's presidential election. Rousseff continues to tout her government's policies, which have tackled long-standing social problems in Brazil. That's why Rousseff continues to earn big support in the country's poor areas. Here's our correspondent in Brazil, Stephanie Kennedy.
Santa Marta attracts a number of visitors, not only for its beautiful views over the city, but also for being the first favela in Rio to have been pacified. Although police presence was once a point of contention, today a new vision looks towards the integration of the area rather than its exclusion.
Mas sempre em prol da comunidade, a polícia de pacificação.
The project has the community at the heart of it. The peacekeepers, as they have been saying, are peaceful officers with a new mentality, a new method of working with social projects, all this in line with issues of security.
The community has prospered, enjoying immense social gains such as public programs for health, education, recycling projects, and of course the cable car. Even Zequinha's restaurant is now one of Rio's gastronomic highlights. For him, Santa Marta has been transformed.
To give you an example, my daughter today can be a lawyer, a journalist. She can be a teacher in the future. So the people now have these expectations, very high ones for the future. Following the pacification, it's all good.
As the famous Christ looks on down, Santa Marta now lies peacefully in the Brazilian sun. We never wanted to leave. Stephanie Kennedy, Telesur, Rio.
And thanks to Stephanie. In Mexico, students from various public universities have announced they will continue their ongoing protests against privatization of the country's resources. They will join together for what they call a mega march this Thursday. For more, we turn to our correspondent in Mexico, Clayton Kahn.
Student representatives from Mexico's biggest public university expressed solidarity with the thousands of striking students from the National Polytechnic Institute, or IPN.
We call upon all of the students of the UNAM to actively support the struggle of Polytechnic students and organize in different areas of study as to defend against the current offensive against public higher education.
IPN students have held massive marches rejecting recent curriculum changes that they say is a technification of their studies. The UNAM students say they face similar threats, which they believe is to only benefit foreign companies.
The struggle of UNAM is directly connected to that of the National Polytechnic Institute. In this context of structural reforms, like the energy reform, the universities become the producers of cheap and qualified labor for those transnational companies that are looting our natural resources.
This burst in student activism comes amid widespread discontent in Mexico, as various social movements call for similar demands under distinct circumstances.
Across the country, there are different movements that are resisting the same process painted in different colors. In particular, there are those movements fighting in defense of their land and territory against dispossession by mega projects.
Clayton Khan, Telesur, Mexico City.
And thanks to Clayton. And now we go to China, where Chinese and U.S. foreign ministers met Wednesday. Following remarks by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, China's foreign minister denounced U.S. interference in sovereign affairs.
Secretary Kerry mentioned Hong Kong. The Chinese government has very firmly and clearly stated its position. Hong Kong affairs are China's internal affairs. All countries should respect China's sovereignty, and this is also a basic principle governing international relations.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas announced Wednesday that a draft resolution to end the Israeli occupation was submitted to the United Nations Security Council. The Palestinian president aims to end the occupation as a prerequisite to renew peace negotiations with Israel. The measure has sparked anger from Tel Aviv and Washington, which have offered criticisms of the plan. The Afghan city of Kabul was shaken by 2 suicide bomb attacks Wednesday carried out by the Taliban. The attacks came in rejection to the U.S.-Afghan security deal signed on Tuesday. The deal allows 10,000 U.S. troops to remain in the country. The Taliban accuses the new Afghan president Ashraf Ghani as a puppet of Washington. And we end this morning with a look at the world of science and the first ever microbe zoo that opens in Amsterdam this week. The exhibits will bring new attention to the tiny creatures that make up 2/3 of all living matter and are vital for the planet's future. Each human carries 1.5 kilos or 3.3 pounds of microbes and would die without them. Experiments have shown the tiny organisms have potential for everything from generating electricity to strengthening building foundations. The new micro zoo hopes to encourage more young scientists in this field of work. Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Have a great Thursday.